So I want to thank the team at GoTo for joining us today. They have a very cool product that would be quite useful in the dealership. So being able to connect your phone calls to other technologies that you're utilizing to communicate with customers all day long. That's such a need. So without me diving too far in the weeds, I'm going to let Ryan and Taylor do that. So take it away, fellas.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm Ryan Pendergrass. I'm the Senior Director of Solutions Consulting here at GoTo. And Taylor is joining me today to kind of walk through our product and what that looks like.
And I'm Taylor Brinton, Senior Manager, Solution Consulting, and get going over our GoTo Connect product.
Yeah, so really we wanted to talk about the use case here and why we're here to discuss our product. So, and that's really around missed calls. So nearly half of all customers are dissatisfied with their dealership experience with both sales and service. And the number one reason is poor communication. Dealers can lose over $850,000 a year on sales and service revenue just from those missed calls. And 75% of customers expect the experience across the channels and departments to be the same. So the dealerships aren't really losing on price, right? They're losing because they're missing these calls. And so we've created a way in which to not allow that to happen anymore. And Taylor's going to walk us through that. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask Taylor, because he talks to dealerships so often, what do you see the experience for these dealerships prior to moving to GoTo?
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great question. It's probably one that I see most often is like a GM running 2 or 3 rooftops. They've got their phone system, they've got their software layered on top of that for their call tracking and CRM logging, but they're paying for all those different solutions, and none of which they can, they own that full stack. So they've got different people to reach out to when there's issues. It wasn't ever really designed to work together. They're kind of overlaid, and they're paying extra for each one of those. So the service advisors really don't know, who's calling until they pick up. Missed calls end up going to voicemail. Nobody follows up, and it's really not logged anywhere. So the GM has to pull reports from 3 different systems, for example. So they're spending more time than they really need to, and they're not able to get the visibility into their business.
I heard a crazy stat about voicemails. So 63% of the time when a receptionist connects a customer to somebody's voicemail, that person or that voicemail is not connected to the right person in the dealership. 63%. So it gets completely missed. Yes, because it's been misconfigured. To Taylor's point, there's multiple systems. You also have so much turnover in the dealership that people forget how these systems work or were never properly trained.
Yeah, everybody's used to just, getting their voicemails on their cell phones. And so, they don't get trained. They, don't record anything for a message. So who knows if you left a message for the right person?
Yeah, it's especially the complexity of those systems can be sort of enormous, right? Like it can be very difficult to manage. And if you're using something that's not sort of purpose built for dealerships, it can be exceptionally difficult. So yeah, totally agree. Yeah, Taylor, on the next slide, just a little bit about sort of the product and offering. So there's really 2 sort of flavors here. GoTo Connect CX for Automotive, which sort of brings everything under one umbrella. So all of the integrations to existing CRMs, in one unified platform, no extra things to pay for, no bolt-ons, it's easy to configure, easy to manage, like we were just talking about. And then our BDC Complete, which offers also a unified inbox. So everything coming in, where that is. You have the ability to, respond to the customers. You're always knowing who's calling because of these integrations that we've got. And we'll talk a little bit more through that. But with that, I wanted to talk to Taylor. So we discussed sort of what the experience is like prior to someone moving to GoTo. I want if we can kind of show like what that experience is like after we move to GoTo.
Everything's done through the cloud. So right now I'm just logged into our admin center, and as the person taking care of the phone system, if I've got multiple rooftops, I can manage that from any location. I can manage it for each location all in one login. So I don't have to worry about which one I'm logged into, which account I'm using, which password, that kind of thing. So just up in the top, they'll have the option in a web browser just to pick which dealership that they're managing. So obviously in mine, I've got a bunch of different ones, but they would just have their dealerships there and the different rooftops. So once you're in here in the admin, you can manage everything from the system, from getting your reports, creating users, assigning licenses, and then configuring the phone system. So the admin side in here, we can dive into a little bit more. But then on the user side, regular old phones, if you want to use your desk phones, everybody's kind of used to those. But if they want to go to a browser-based phone, they can use a headset, or they can use their mobile phone as well. And that interface is also just, we have a desktop app, or we also have that just in a web client as well. So just another tab over, and I've got all my phone calls. I can make and receive phone calls. I've got my dialing pad here. Voicemails, as we were talking about, those are in here in the system. Just here, we can have those sent to you by email, and they can even be transcribed. Some of these ones might not have any actual audio in them from the demo to show the transcription, but it would have it just over here on the right-hand side.
That's a nice way to know whether your voicemail system is working or not. Getting them emailed to you.
Yep. Yeah. And it'll include the audio there and include the transcription in that email. So most of the time, a voicemail is like, you're going to waste some time listening to that, and you can just get it, the gist of it in the text and transcription, just to call that person back. It's all as quick as we can. But you mentioned one thing, that one of the voicemails, maybe somebody transferred it to the wrong place. That happens a lot. So it's super easy. If you see that voicemail, you can forward that voicemail. You see it, oh, that's not for me. I can just forward that and send it to somebody else in the company, so they can take care of that as well.
That's nice.
Then we've got our inbox. So you have multiple channels of things coming into your dealership. You've got your website chat. You've got SMS. There's different ways for people to contact you, and a lot of people want to talk to you in via digital channels. On this website, just a fake, dealership website, there could just be a chat bottom on the bottom right here. When somebody chats in, it all shows up in the same inbox, whether it's chatting in, sending an SMS. So if I were to click into that conversation, everybody has views into this. You can assign those to specific people, or you can just have your BDC handling these conversations. So if I was to take this conversation, I could then start just having that conversation with that person right on the website. If it needed to go to another person, I could assign that over to somebody else. So it's real easy to move those conversations, and everybody has view into those, which is nice that you have one place to go. You're not going into other systems and having to figure out where's that alert coming from, which channel did it come from. It'll tell me this one's from the website. If they put in their name, phone number, then it'll show up, and you can assign it a contact as well if they didn't put in their name and phone number.
I know, this makes me feel so much better about those very expensive phone systems we used to buy from our DMS companies that were many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and really it was just a physical thing that you had to use the phone for. There was not much of a web interface.
Yeah, and then you had to maintain that hardware. The things that were, the connections all to it. We just need an internet connection. We go right over the top of your regular internet connection, and that way, you're not managing even contracts and how many minutes you have and all those things. So we can get you as many phone numbers as you need, so that way you can still do your call tracking, and I'll show you some of that in the analytics here soon. One of the other really nice things is having that incoming call pop into your CRM or DMS. So when, just for example, into like VIN Solutions. So when a phone call comes in, we can have it automatically look at that phone number. It'll pop open a screen. You have all the details of that, and you're then working right inside VIN Solutions. So you don't have to, manage contacts in two places. We're syncing those between the two with our integrations. And then everything on the phone call, if it's recorded, those can be played right here say within Vin Solutions. And then we have AI looking at the sentiment, looking at the transcription, and giving you a summary of it. And that all gets populated here into Vin Solutions, or whatever system you happen to be using. And then you can click in and get the full detail of how long the call was, who was part of the call. And then you also have the recording if you need to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, one of the sort of key points here that I mentioned at the top is sort of the missed call / not knowing who's calling, and this just eliminates that, right? If someone calls in, you know who you're talking to, you know what vehicle you're talking about, right? All of that stuff is just presented right to you, and it just makes for a much better customer experience.
It sure does.
Yeah, and then if we're looking into the analytics, this gives you where you're going to work. In the your system every day. Phone calls coming in. If you need to make a call out to a customer, I can just hover over their phone number, click on it. It'll make that outbound call. Comes from your up to you guys to how to configure, but it can come from the dealership main number. So if they miss that call and the call back, it just goes back to the main number. Or if you have direct lines to your service department, whatever phone number you'd like it to be, we can configure that for the outbound per person. And then getting into the analytics side of it, you get to see every one of those calls. So again, it's web-based, access anybody. You can give different levels of access. So you can see your own calls, or you can see everybody's calls, or a group of calls. And you get to group those down. But this is just our basic call reports here that we're looking at now. But today, you can see all the different calls that are in here. These are calls that I made just to show a few different examples. But when I click into them, I get all the details. So if I click into this one, this interaction overview is going to come up. It's going to give us that AI summary. So you'll have a quick, easy way to see the summary here if you're trying to dig in on a specific call. And then even sentiment. This one I gave a recording. It was a negative sentiment, so you could see that this call, maybe it's something that you need to look into. I can look at the details and see what happened with that call. Were they frustrated because they took a while to get to somebody? Was it more the agent side? Whatever it happens to be, you can see exactly where that call went from start all the way to finish. You can listen to the recording here as well. And then if you needed to dig in past the summary and see exactly what was said, there's a transcript on every call. So every word from both sides of the transaction of the phone call is in here.
And do you have reports that show the sentiment? So you can I want to see all the negative ones for today kind of thing.
It's like you read my mind. That was what I was going to show. And it's the next one. So we do that. Yeah, exactly. That's what people want to see is when those calls come in. I want to see sentiment overall. And I also want to see specific words and topics. If I'm looking this one here, I was doing the negative to get a few of those to show up, but this gives me these topics that came up. You can also set flags in here. So if there's specific flags and specific words you want to show up, then those topics will show up and be flagged as well. We can even do like email alerts on certain topics and flags. So you get alerted when that's happening.
What are some examples of flags that you guys have set up?
It could be different keywords like frustration, or if there's service. It doesn't have to be negative or positive. That's just an easy example. But you can do one for, if service calls. So maybe somebody's calling in and mentioning that, and those are going to the wrong place, or you're seeing service and frustration. Maybe that helps you dial in on, okay, well, these calls are being routed. We need to do a little training. We need to look at the phone system and make sure that as we've had turnover, that they're not being routed to the wrong place.
Yeah, there's also like the marketing component of this too, like putting your sources as flags, so that if someone brings that source up, that can show up here and say, we're seeing that this is being brought up a lot. So we sort of know what's working for us, and that gives you some insight into that as well.
Cool. When One that would be great is if you just had somebody leave the dealership, you put their name in as a flag, figure out how many calls that person's still receiving.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you could do that with the flags and show it up here. So if somebody mentions it that way, you could also, I could filter down by their phone number as well. So if they had a direct number or extension, I could still see exactly how many calls they were getting and help, reroute those. And that's a big advantage too, as well, is with using our mobile app. And, if somebody did just leave, they're using a company phone number. They're using that either with the mobile app while they're out on the lot or, talking to customers. And if they leave, that's your number at the dealership. So they don't get to take that with them. They don't take their customers and the phone calls that, we're going to come in. We just reroute that phone number to either the main line or wherever it needs to go. So those calls are still coming into the deal.
Now, you were saying that it'll, of course, you can track keywords. Are you to the point now where AI can actually listen to sort of tell from the customer's tone if it's negative or positive?
We can, yes. Yeah. So
Really?
on these calls, we can do that live.
Okay.
As you can see in this, just on the reporting, it also tells me the AI sentiment. That was the overall sentiment of the call.
Okay.
But if I'm back in our soft phone and say I'm a supervisor or set up as a supervisor, and I want to see all the people that are available to take calls. So I've got an agent in here available to take call. And on this, we can show live sentiment of that call while it's going on. So during the call, this will either light up red or green. And then if you have multiple endpoints where the calls are coming in, like call queues or different, your service department, it kind of gives me an AI sentiment overall. There's either one that's kind of go negative or depending on what's happening. And then as a supervisor, I could come in and listen to that call live while it's happening. They don't know that I'm there. I could then click on whisper and I'd be able to whisper to my agent and
Scare them.
Cool.
Yeah, it does. It can scare them every once in a while if they're not aware of it. But you can coach that way. You can help out. Hey, it sounds like this person. We got to get them over to this department. Sounds they're frustrated. And if you had to, if it just went really bad or they needed some help, instead of having to have them conference somebody in, and if you're watching those, you could barge into the call and then it becomes a three-way call. So you're now part of that call and everybody can hear you.
We had that at a BDC I used to run, and that was very useful. A lot of people in the car business, we call it getting back to basics, but are getting too smart. So if you have a good month, usually the month after, you're too smart and you sell a lot less because you are not covering the basics that every customer needs you to cover. So being able to whisper into somebody's ear, hey, you're getting off the beaten track here. You're giving too much information.
Exactly. Yeah. And the coaching ability there is huge. And, everybody could always use a little coaching, and having somebody kind of there to help and whisper in your ear is always valuable.
Cool feature request, maybe cool. I don't know. If AI was capable of coaching on every call, didn't necessarily have to be whispering in your ear kind of thing, but it could be putting something up on your screen and just a little reminder. And that way the managers at the dealership, who are always fighting a fire and never have time to really pay attention to what's going on, especially live in the moment, then they can be hands off and not have to worry about it, and the coaching occurs.
Yeah, I think we're in the same line. I think stay tuned, I would say.
Good.
It's coming close because as part of this, I don't want to put a live call through because it takes me a second to, get the call going, but it has the ability to, for the agent and for a supervisor, when you click on this, it has a live transcription as you're talking. So as a supervisor, you don't have to listen in. You could just have the transcription there. But that leads into that next thing. If we got the transcription, AI could be reading that at the same time and then providing that coaching back to you. And then we also do that, after the fact as well. So quality management, after the calls, you can set up evaluations. So like you said, they don't have time to be on every one of those calls, but you can set up quality management. So Every one of those calls can be scored, and then you get a score back, and it automatically is scoring every one of those calls after the fact for coaching. It's just not that live coaching on the call yet, but it does it afterwards, and you get to set the configuration of what questions should they have asked. Did they ask the customer's name? Did they ask year of the car? All the things that they need to ask, like in the service department, you can make sure that they're hitting all those things. And then afterwards, AI will give them a score, send that to their supervisor. You can keep up on all those calls because there's too many calls for one person or just the supervisor to go monitor all those live.
Yeah. So if I've bought into a phone training program, could do that and then be able to program in their trainings into this and stay consistent long after the initial trainings were done. And when I have new employees coming in, because I can't bring in the phone trainer every time a new employee starts. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it just kind of keeps tabs on them. You have categories of the different questions that you can put in there. So, it allows us to have that oversight without having to look at every single call like we used to have to in the old days. You had to listen to every call.
Right.
This one, let AI handle that. You set up the questions, and then you get a full report back on that.
There's one more short thing I wanted Taylor to just mention. We don't have to go dive too deeply into it, but sort of what I talked about in the beginning was missed calls. And there is a really unique way we can handle those. So, if someone calls a dealership at 9 p.m. on a Saturday, what do you do to sort of, capture that and not have that go to a different dealership? And Taylor, if you want to cover that real quickly, I think that's the last thing we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned, having AI handle things, live and coaching. That's great, but you also have those after hours calls. And so we have our AI receptionist, and our AI receptionist can handle those calls. It doesn't have to just be after hours. You get to set the schedule of when that call picks up and when the AI is handling it. So maybe that's in front of a lot of the calls where it's answering some of the basic questions, what time are you open, what those kind of things. But you can set it up and have as many different AI receptionists handle those. One of the things, we have an integration with Xtime for scheduling. And so it can handle scheduling from start to finish. It collects the information, ties into Xtime, schedules the appointment. It's asking them questions. You put in, it's using everything from Xtime of what you have set up for your service. So if it's oil changes, if it's anything that you would have available, you can make available to the AI. So it goes through a full scheduling, and then you get reporting on that as well. So you can see not only in Xtime they're reporting, but you get to see what calls were answered by AI, what was the outcome of that call. So some of our basic questions can be answered by AI receptionist. Doesn't have to just be scheduling. So you give it knowledge. Like in here, I've linked it to About Connect Motors, that website that I was showing earlier. Gave it some general information. You can even give it inventory, and people can ask questions about the cars. If I look in inventory here, I've got just basically a text file of different cars, how much they are, and if there's any details you can include there. And it will use this conversationally. It's not just going to read out what I have in the text. This is its knowledge base, and then it will conversationally talk with them about that, or it can give the information about the service center as well. It'll let them know how much each service is if you want to put that in there. Just more information that you can offload a little bit of that repetitive questions sometimes using AI.
I'd love to see that in action, especially
Yeah.
for scheduling an appointment. So someone calls in, maybe you get it narrowed down. AI is able to narrow it down. They just need an oil change. They're able to look at the appointment book to see when do we have an availability. We know an oil change takes an hour and a half. And now it's matching up against the opportunities available. and then be able to go ahead and schedule that appointment, and all through AI.
Yeah.
Yep, all through AI.
That's right. And it could be,
I could bring up,
to your point, it doesn't matter if anybody's at the dealership at the time, right? So someone could call at 3:00 in the morning because they need an oil change. And typically that's sort of just lost revenue, right? But in this case, the appointment's scheduled for them, right? And so they don't need to worry about calling a different dealership or, nobody answered, I'll leave a message, but maybe on Monday I'll call back. And, none of that happens anymore with this because they can actually do the full scheduling without anybody ever picking up the phone.
How would somebody get in touch with them to go a little deeper?
Head to GoTo Connect or search GoTo Connect Automotive. There'll be a get in touch link. And that's it, right? It'll ask you for some basic information. Someone will reach out. We really make sure we're tailoring this to each dealership. So, your specific DMS and CRM, we want to make sure we understand that. We want to understand how many rooftops you have, what the workflows look like, all that stuff. And then, we can do a very deep dive and show you how, what the impact will be of deploying GoTo at your dealership.
It's just GOTO.com.
Great URL.
Yep. So go to. Well, fellas, thank you for your time today. This is really cool. I'm not going to make any assumptions about the pricing, but I have a feeling that dealers will find this affordable compared to what they have been paying in the past for other things.
I'd say it's a pretty safe assumption.
Perfect.
Excellent.